Welcome to PeopleTools Tech Tips. I'm Randy Gronke. Today we're talking about user-uploaded images. This is our second video in a series about images in PeopleTools. There are two types of images in PeopleTools. We have design time images and user-uploaded images. Design time images are those logos and other things in the UI that we have while we're creating the page. User-uploaded images are things such as employee photos and asset images that we account for during design time, but we have no idea what the actual images will be at runtime with the user. Consider user-uploaded images as data, as viewable attachments into the system. This video is not going to cover images in the Fluid interface. Fluid images will be a later video in this series. If you'd like to skip ahead to specific sections, the timings are in the details below. Would you like a copy of all the code and objects we use in these demos you're seeing? They're all available free to download at PeopleToolsTechTips.com, also at our GitHub repository, PeopleTools Tech Tips. Okay, user images in PeopleSoft using the PeopleTools functions. Well, let's be real about something. They all don't work as advertised, and as of 8.5.8, they all actually don't work. We have two in the group that are ThinkTime functions. That's InsertImage and Crop. And then the Delete and the Resize are not ThinkTime functions. You just fire them off as you will. But in reality, do we really need DeleteImage? We have it, use it, but it's a row in a database. We can handle this ourselves. The InsertImage, they have extra functions that really don't work. Bottom line is, it appears that our image functions for uploading images into the application haven't been functionally or really touched since our 8.0 PeopleTools way back when. But that's okay. Oracle is not Adobe or some other imaging company. It doesn't make sense for PeopleSoft to spend the resources to really enhance these image functions for things other than just uploading the image into the system. I figure once we have the image and possibly resize it, that's all we really need PeopleTools to do. If you have advanced image requirements, such as shading or whatever have you, you have better tools out there available, most of them free with your operating system or on the web. Or get your professional graphic arts people to deal with it with their tools. That's not Oracle's backyard, so don't spend the money there. Now, on the other hand, I wish these tools had been updated since 8.0. Or at least functionally, or at least like in Crop, they do work. It's sort of like, you know, here's a function, it should work in the system and it shouldn't be put off till later. Anyway, we have the basics of what we need. We can upload the image into the system. We can display it for the next user. So let's start talking about our next issue. And that is, how does the architecture actually display the image inside the user's web page? Let's talk about how the PeopleSoft architecture displays images in your browser. This is a little bit different from your straightforward, simple web architecture where you have the web server, possibly an app server behind it, delivering HTML to the users. A lot of times what you'll have is a file server with the images in a fixed directory that the web app server knows about, and it'll send a link to that image from that file server. However, in PeopleSoft, we often have much more complex architectures with many app servers, many web servers behind load balancers. And what we don't want to do is put all these images out in one file server or multiple file servers in a fixed place. What this ends up doing is creating a lot of duplicate images across multiple file servers and a maintenance issue. How PeopleSoft deals with this is that it keeps all these user images in the database. in a database table. So at the time the user requests an image for a page, the app server goes out to the database, grabs that image and places it out there in the file in the web server's cache, and then delivers in GHTML a link to that image to the user. So the user just clicks on the page and pulls the image from the web server's cache that the app server put it there just in time. This allows us to have a lot simpler maintenance, and we don't worry about having the same image across multiple different file web servers for serving to the users. Let's talk about the objects we need to support the users in uploading user images. We need a special field that's called an image field, and it's a PeopleTools object. It's promotable. This is what you're going to put on your record definition. Now, the PeopleTools image field allows us to upload the image in a binary form and store it on a database table. What we don't have is a generic image type. We have to declare what type of image that this field is going to handle when the user uploads it, whether it's a JPEG, whether it's a PNG, whether it's a BMP GIF. We have to tell it that type ahead of time. If the user attempts to load up a different type of image, it'll generate an error. We also get to tell it the max size on this image, and I would encourage you just to let that as 0 and let the database control how big that field is. We can control the image size at the image import using the InsertImage function, and that works a whole lot better. Let's talk about the image reference field real quick. The image reference field allows us to treat a design time image as a user uploaded images in the UI. Well, why would we want to do that? Take, for example, the employee photo. We have several umpteen thousand employees, and I know we don't have a photograph for each one of those employees. So for the several thousand employees that we do not have a photo, we want to display the generic human outprint line for them in the UI just for consistency. Well, what we don't want to do is store that image inside of each employee's data record where we don't have the photograph, thus storing that same image several thousand times, or how many employees we don't have the photo. We use the image reference field here to put that placeholder in the UI. And maybe we'll do a video about that later, but that's not going to be included in this lesson here. Okay, now we have our image field. We need to put it in a record. Now we are using a standard PeopleSoft record definition, and it has to follow the same rules as any other record in your system, have the keys, the parent, child, and fit into your application, your page with the scrolls. However, we have that image field we're going to put there. Also, we're going to put the PSImage ver field on there, and that's going to act like the system's serial number for that image the user is uploading. It needs to be on every record definition the same as the image field, and we're also going to put it on the page with that image field. We're going to add our image field to this page in this group box. The easiest way to do this is to drag the image field onto the page from the record on the Project Development tab. Place it, grab a corner, and drag out the box to the size you want on the page. Let's look at our image field properties. First, we have scale and size, and it defaults to the stretched out size that you put on that page. Selecting size places the image on the page at its native resolution, whatever that is. Scale lets us set the height and width of the image on the page. However, you risk skewing the image if your aspect ratio is different from the images. Text on the Label tab provides the mouse over text on the page. On the Use tab, we want to set the image to display only since images aren't themselves actionable in our PeopleTools. The last thing we need to do is place the PSImage ver field on the page at the same buffer level as its corresponding image field. I'm going to make this display only for the demonstration. Usually we hide this field on the page with the invisible option. Now that we have all the objects on the page, let's start talking about the delivered people code functions used for image manipulation in PeopleTools. First up is InsertImage function. The InsertImage function allows the user to import an image into the PeopleSoft environment. I'm going to attach the InsertImage code to this push button on our demo page. The function will upload the image into the image field on the page. Currently, we see the default image for our UI, which is really just an image reference field. This takes the place of an image that we don't yet have. Let's look at the page in the code. We want to upload the image to the XPT3 equip field. We also have the PSImageVer field below it. We're attaching the code to this button here, Import Image PB. Here's our component people code on that field's field change event. I already have the basic comments and record objects defined. The first thing we need is an integer to capture the results of the import image function. Now let's import the actual image. Result equals insert image. The first parameter is the target record field of the page's image object. And that is the only required parameter. This is a think time function, and we have to check the results of the function to determine what happened with the user. Since this function has more than one possible result, we want to evaluate the return value. When success, let's rearrange the page to show the new image and buttons that are now actionable. Another option is that the user cancel the operation instead of uploading an image. The function could have failed because the image was too large for the max size parameter if we set it. If that happens, we notify the user that the image was too big. The remaining possible options generally mean that this was a virus scan issue. See PeopleBooks for all the different return code possibilities. And evaluate and save. Let's go back to the page and see how that is working. Add, place a description. Click on Import Image. We see a modal pop-up in the UI for the user to choose the image file. This is what makes it a think time function. Clicking Choose File invokes the user's file manager to select the file. I'm going to select this logo JPEG and then upload. Here is our image imported to the page. Let's save. The function placed the uploaded image in our image field. Our PSImageVer field is also populated by the function. Best practice is to hide this field. No need to confuse the user with information they don't need nor can they use. Let's go back and change some of those items and see how that works. Let's put in a max image size parameter in the InsertImage function. This number is in kilobytes. I'm putting a small number here to trigger the error. So let's test it out. And notice our image file is 67K. Of course, we get the error that the image is too big. This is the best way to control the image size imported by the user. Let's go back and remove the max size parameter. And now we'll see what happens when the user cancels the image upload. Import image and cancel. We see the cancel confirmation text. The page is not rearranged for the new image. Let's just upload an image for our tests. Save, exit the page, come back to that row and see if the image is still there. And there it is. The DeleteImage function allows us to delete the image in an image field. We could just delete the image by removing the value from the field, but this function will do it for us. Let's put our code on this DeleteImage button. We're already set up with our comments and our record objects. First thing we need is our result variable, which is a boolean for this function. True is a successful delete, false is a failure trying to delete the image. Then we want to delete the image. The only parameter is the image record field. Notice this is not a record object variable, but a reference to the record field in the buffer. Then we want to test the result boolean to find out if it worked. If success, delete the PS version value and let the user know the image was deleted. We have to delete our PS version value. The DeleteImage function does not delete it itself. If it failed, let the user know. Let's see it in action. Go to the row where we just uploaded our image and delete our image. The image is deleted. PSImageVer is also removed. Just remember that it's not really gone until the user saves the page. CropImage allows a user to crop an image on the page. However, it doesn't work depending on your version of PeopleTools. 858 currently has a bug causing the CropImage function to generate an on-ready state error. Oracle solution is a fix in PeopleTools 859 or 860. We're going to go through it anyway with the expectation it'll be fixed. CropImage is not destructive to the original image. It allows the user to crop the original image, creating a new image. This is a think time function, meaning it requires a user input during the execution. It can't be used in batch. Let's look at our page. We need two image fields here with their sister PSImage ver fields. The source image here is from our database record. The target image is an image field on a derived work record. What we're going to do is to send it to our target field, which is a work record on the page. The target field has to be exactly the same as the source for the field type and allowed size. This is our work record here. Notice we have our temp equipment field and also our PSImage ver field. Let's look at the people code on the crop image. We already have our comments and record objects defined. Again, the first thing we need to do is set our result variables. Prior to PeopleTools 858, the result field was a Boolean. Starting in 858, it appears the result field is now an integer. Next, we set up our aspect ratio variables. We have the option to force an aspect ratio on the cropped image. The height and width variables are a little misleading. These are not sizes or pixels, but aspect ratios. If we use these, the users can crop to any size they need. However, the result will be in this ratio. These parameters are optional, and if you don't use them, the user is free to use any aspect ratio they like. For the crop function, its result equals crop image. From the source image field to the target field. And that is all the required parameters that we need. Next, we need to test to see if the crop works. If the result is 0, success. Let's hide a group box holding the source image. Else, let the user know that there was an error. Let's see the crop image function as much as we can before the error. Click on the crop image button and a modal window appears with a copy of the image and a crop control. Since we didn't put in the aspect ratio parameters, you can see that we can choose any shape crop rectangle that we want. Whether it's relatively the same as the original image or something really odd, this is the risk of not having a defined aspect ratio in your crop. Once they define the area, they can move it around for the best fit and click OK. Unfortunately, we get the ready state error. This is a failed page, so we won't be able to save, but we can see the cropped image over in our target image field. Now let's go back and apply our aspect ratio control parameters. Width first, then height. Let's save and test it out. When we crop, notice that the crop control box is locked into an aspect ratio. I can make it as big or small as I want, but the aspect ratio is locked. Click OK. We get the error, but we can also see the result of the crop in our target image field. The Resize Image function allows us to change the size of a user-uploaded image. This is a function we use a lot to control how images appear in our UI, even if our users upload huge images with large pixel counts. We can force the image into a size that works well with our page. This is not a think time function and doesn't need user input. Just as the CropImage function, the Resize Image function is a non-destructive. It does not change the original source image, but creates a new target image with new dimensions. It also requires source and target image fields on the page with the respective PSImage ver fields. This is our source database record field with the image, and this is our target field, which is a work record field on the page. Let's look at some of the code. We already have our comments and record object variables predefined in the page. Again, let's start by defining our results variable as an integer. Next, we need an array of number to hold the dimensions of the new image. Let's instantiate that array with a 0. Next, let's push the width of the new image. Now, why did we put in a 0 for the height? When we resize the image, we want to keep the aspect ratio of the image regardless of the original height and width of the image. We can define these with the exact height and width, but that could skew the aspect ratio of the resulting image if we don't have the ratio perfect here. Our two resize options are resize by dimensions or resize by percentage. It just makes sense to resize by dimensions since PeopleTools does not give us a tool to show the dimensions of the uploaded image. Resizing by percentage would be a guess based upon a guess. Result variable equals Resize Image. First parameter is the source image record field. Next variable is our destination field. Then we put in our dimensions array. The next parameter is the type. I almost always choose resize by dimensions. The last parameter is a boolean only used when resizing by dimension. Do you want to maintain the aspect ratio of the original image? True or false? True keeps the original aspect ratio of the image, where false allows you to override the aspect ratio. This type parameter is ignored if you choose resize by percentage. Getting back to the dimensions array, we're saying that we want the image to be 200 pixels wide. But depending on the aspect ratio of the original image, we want PeopleTools to determine the height. If we're using resize by percentage, you push into the array pairs of height and width percentages. Then the last parameter is ignored. If you are resizing by dimension, you need the last array elements to be a 0. If you are resizing by percentage, you need your last two array elements to be 0. Originally, PeopleTools let us place in more than one set of image size parameter in the array. The function would create as many new images as you had sets of dimensions. The new images would be placed in the PeopleTools temp store table. Unfortunately, that functionality no longer seems available. We only resize one image at a time, creating a new image on the page's target image field. After we resize, we have to test the return variable to find out if we were successful. If the resize was a success, I'm going to unhide the group box with the target image so we can see the new resized image. We're also going to unhide the button that triggers copying the new image back into the source image field. Else it failed. Let's test that out. Let's resize this image. There is our new image. We said we wanted our new image to be 200 pixels wide. So let's inspect this image and see its properties in the HTML page. We can see that our image width is 200 pixels. Its height is 108 pixels. So that's in proportion with the width. So again, resizing does not destroy the original image, but creates a new image. Our next question is, what are we going to do with that new image? The last thing we want to talk about is moving images between image fields. In our last segment, we resized our image and, since it's not destructive, created a new smaller image. Our original image here was placed into a copy image there. Many times when you're resizing the image, you want to replace the original image with that resized copy. Once we have the value here, we want to copy it back to the original database record field. Since these are really just record fields on our page, all we have to do is to copy the value of the target work record image back to the source database image field. We also have to remember to copy the PSImageVer field from the target back to the source PSImageVer field, keeping the value with its corresponding image. So let's take a look at that. Here's our Move button PeopleCode event with the comments and record object variables declared. Copy the target image field value from the work record into the source database image field value. Our original field value equals work record field value. Since we're doing this to the image, we must also copy our companion PSImageVer field over exactly the same way. Just to clean up the page, we also hide the original group box with the target image. Let's also hide the Move button since it's already moved. So let's look at how our code works. First, we resize our image. There's our new image with a much smaller size. What I really want is for the original image to be that smaller image. So clicking the Move button moves the image over and hides the Work Image field. Save puts the value in the database. Return to search and retrieve that image again. We see the new, smaller image. So that's all there is to user uploaded images. We have our fields, we have our records, we have our pages with our fields in the PS image viewer and how that works. We're allowed to upload images, we resize them, we move them around, we try to crop them, but of course that broke until at least 8.5.9 or later. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing if you enjoy what you're watching, and we'll see you next time here on PeopleTools Tech Tips.